Hello. So as you can tell by the title, this is another one of the One Piece couples videos. This one is going to be about ocean love. So this one's going to be about King Neptune and Queen Otohime of the Ryugu Kingdom, the Neptune family, of course, the rulers of Fishman Island and that area, of course. The parents of Fukaboshi, Ryoboshi, Momboshi, and Shirahoshi. And I just wanted to go over their relationship because of the fact that it is kind of one of those, yeah, we don't see like as much of it as we do of even like, I guess we agree of like Scarlet and Kyros. They're going to be the next couple that I talk about, but we still see a bits of their relationship. Um, we have moments throughout the story once we find out about Fishman Island or once we get to Fishman Island and such, where we have, Neptune and the boys and Shirahoshi all talk about, Otohime. Um, and what we learn, and through the flashback that we got with Odin and, Roger and everything in their flashback, we found out that Otohime did not come from a royal family or a noble family or anything like that, as far as we're aware. She was once just a civilian mermaid, and she had this great political cause. Of course, she wanted to, unite, the merfolk and the fishmen with, the surface, where they can all live in harmony with the people at the surface. She had this, very, very big dream, and she did this, political protest where she wanted to do that. And we learn about this because in the Odin flashback, we have it that Neptune and Roger and Odin and like their, Roger's crew are sitting and they're talking with like this little like 4 or 5 year old Charlie or however old she is. And and she like gives them this prophecy of like, the king will have, the mermaid princess will be born in, so many years, and she will, grow and everything, and then she will meet this other person, this other incarnation, and they will, this, the incarnation of Joy Boy or the next Joy Boy or whatever the wording was that they used. And and Neptune's answer was like, but I'm not even married yet. This can't be real. And then she goes like, a carp will marry into the royal family. And he's just like, what? And Otohime is like a carp or a goldfish type mermaid. And one of the guards, I don't remember if they state specifically which guard, but like one of the guards that's there is like, well, there is Otohime who's been causing this uproar with her protest. And Neptune is just like, why would I marry her? Or like whatever the case may be. And we don't know exactly how they got married. We don't know if it was just like, if you lessen your political protest, you can marry me and become the queen, and then we'll do this type of a thing. But I do think that Otohime and Neptune got married for love, that maybe it was like, she was doing these protests, not like a Romeo and Juliet story or anything like that, but like, she was doing these protests, in regards to wanting to live on the surface, live alongside humans as equals, not as slaves, not as lesser than them. But she wanted to have this. She had this vision, and like I have this feeling that it was like her and Neptune. Like he was just like, okay, fine, bring her in. I will talk to her. And like they came in, she came in with like maybe some of her other people that were part of her protest, and she, her and Neptune maybe just connected. Not like love at first sight or anything like that, but like they connected and eventually they did fall in love. And then they end up, and then from there it is, they fall in love, they get married, she becomes queen of, the Ryugu kingdom, and then she of course has Fukaboshi, Ryoboshi, and Momboshi, and then she has Shirahoshi 16 years ago. I can never remember the exact age of the princess, but I think Fukaboshi is at least in his 20s. Early 20s, I think, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong on that, I don't remember exactly, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. But she married into the royal family and everything. The dog has joined us. Hi, you want to be part of the video? I'm talking about mermaids. Really, you mean like that picture of me as a mermaid that's on the channel as a mer puppy? Yeah, sure, that. Yep, you mer puppy. You want to lay back? You want to lay down? Or you can sit. That works too. I can pet you while I talk. Hi. I know you're fluffy. But you know, what ends up happening is obviously they got married, you know, they fell in love and they got married. And, you know, Otohime never stopped her protest. She still wanted to do, well, she may have like lessened her protest, but she used her position as queen, this diplomatic position that she was given, as a way to try to further her goals in regards to making, you know, getting, you know, the fishmen and the merfolk and humans and everything to be able to live with each other. And throughout that course of time, you know, we see her still out protesting and everything when all of her children are born. And she, you know, we see her when her and Fisher Tiger comes in and speaks with her, and Neptune and everything. I also have to bring up the whole thing of size difference between like Otohime and Neptune, because she's like the size of like a normal human, and Neptune is like, I don't remember how tall he is, but he's really, really, really freaking tall. And I'm like, okay, how does this work? Because logic and physics would suggest no. And hi, are you gonna stay here for a while? Right, I just stay for now. They is can watch me in the video. I know, you're so cute, aren't you? And like, you know, side terms, I'm like, that doesn't compute, the computer says no. um you know, we get the same thing with like Big Mom and some of her stuff, but with like some of her children and such. But you know, it's like the, okay, I don't want to know the physics of this, but I kind of want to, but I don't, so I don't know what's going on here. But and given the fact that like Shirahoshi was like so much bigger than her mother when she was a baby, was she like a normal sized baby when she was born, and then she just like grew really, really quickly? We don't know. But what ends up happening is, you know, she still does her protests, and she's there when Fisher Tiger, you know, returns from, you know, well, when he returns from being a slave and had done the raid on Marie-Joie, and when he, you know, makes his way back to, you know, the Ryugu kingdom, and then he goes off to make the Sun Pirates, you know, Jinbei and Arlong and everything. But he goes and he talks to Neptune and Otohime, and he tells them that he's, you know, well, this is before he goes and does his raid on Marie-Joie, but he, you know, he tells them he's going to do this. He's going to go to Marie-Joie and, you know, do this raid and, you know, free all these slaves, fishmen, human, all slaves, as many of them as he can. And, you know, Neptune and Otohime are both like, well, you know, we can't sanction that. We can't sanction that, sanction what you want to do. But, you know, you to a degree have our support. Otohime and Fisher Tiger didn't see eye to eye on everything. Of course, Otohime wanted it that they could live among humans and be equal with them. And unfortunately, Fisher Tiger, you know, with everything that he'd been through as a slave and with everything that he'd seen from humanity, I don't blame him for, you know, not thinking that, you know, him and Otohime differing in opinions. I don't blame Fisher Tiger for that at all. And, you know, and we learn about that a little bit later with his story. But one of the things that we see is Otohime continues to do her protests. And, you know, Neptune tells the minister of the right, or the minister of the left, you know, just make sure that she doesn't get hurt, to protect her any way that he can, because he very much loved her. And, you know, Otohime loved him and loved their children. And, you know, he was, you know, he didn't take an active role in her campaign, but he didn't do anything to try to stop her from it. And then, of course, we have the moment where, like, Otohime gets drunk and, like, gets a hold of, like, the broadcast Den Mushi and, like, says it, like, I don't remember if she thinks she's just doing it to the entire castle or if it is, like, to the entire kingdom. And I think it is the entire kingdom of, you know, Fishman Island, the Ryugu kingdom as a whole. And she does her whole speech about, like, you know, you're so blind and everything. Like, that's actually the quote that I have on the end of this video. And, you know, she does this whole speech and everything when she's drunk and desperate. And that is where the turning point is, of course, or that's one of the turning points in, you know, she starts getting more and more people that are supporting her. And, you know, later on, you know, once she, you know, when she deals with, you know, Saint Charlos, when he should come, or not Charlos, when she deals with Saint Milzigard, you know, when she saves him, and then when he, you know, she goes up to Marie-Joie with him, and she comes back with, you know, the written statement from the Celestial Dragon saying that, you know, if we can, you know, if we can get so many signatures, then you know, we will then, you know, if enough majority of Fishman Island give us their signatures and give us their permission, then we will go and fire you. Never mind. And then we will, you know, help with, you know, raising Fishman Island or bringing, you know, fishmen up to the surface and everything. Which, you know, we learn later on that, you know, Im Sama already approved of something along those lines. So many years later, at the current reverie that just happened, the most recent reverie, we find out that that was, you know, kind of voted on to be a yes, which I'll get to that reverie in a minute. But we, you know, we learn about that and everything. But, you know, and then Otohime, of course, works so hard, and so many years later, they have all the signatures, and then, of course, Otohime is, of course, assassinated by Horty Jones, and you know her dream lived on, and her children and everything. And hi, and you know her dream lived on in her children, but also in her husband, because you know her sons restart the campaign and continue the campaign for all of the signatures, and Neptune supports them, and he keeps her ideals alive and wanting to, you know, he preserves his wife's ideals and everything. And like, yes, there is still that distance that they have to go in order to fully connect with humans and everything. And you know, Luffy and the others showing up does help with that. And we also still see like the love that the people have for Otohime, because you know when Horty is like telling them, it's like, okay, now you have to step on this picture of, you know, Otohime to prove your loyalty, you know, to me and to this cause, or to renounce, you know, you signed this, you know, before, so, you know, you have to renounce your cause now and everything. And he forces all of these people, all the fishmen and everything, to like step on this picture of Otohime. And you can see how much it even still hurts them today because of how much of a beloved queen that she was, even, you know, I think it's like 10 years later or so. And Oda has a thing for 10 years. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Can we not have people, so many people suffer in such a short amount of time frame? But yeah, moving on. But, you know, and we still see like some connection to Otohime and like her love for her husband and for her children and for her people when we see, you know, Milzigard shows up when, you know, well, Garp is, you know, Garp's the one that, you know, is the escort for, you know, is the Garp is the one that's the escort for the Neptune family when they go up to, you know, go through the Red Port and go to Marie-Joie, of course, for the you know, for the reverie and everything, because, you know, now they are going to go and try to get Fishman Island brought to the surface, or set up to go to the surface. And, you know, Garp's there and he meets them, and, you know, he gets along quite well with Shirahoshi and them pretty quickly, which is nice. And, like, Shirahoshi is just like, oh, you're Luffy's grandpa? Oh, it's so nice to meet you. They're so adorable. She's so adorable. But what ends up happening is, of course, you know, this is where they have to deal with Charlos is there and everything, and he tries to, you know, force Shirahoshi into becoming a slave. And, you know, this is when, you know, Milzigard shows up, and just a reason to show this image of, you know, Milzigard, you know, hitting Charlos across the face with a baseball bat. Because I love any excuse to show that picture. Also, you know, just because I can, picture of Charlos getting punched by Luffy. Yes. And what ends up happening is, you know, Milzigard, you know, not necessarily for like Otohime's love for her husband, but for Otohime's compassion for others is what helps, you know, is what helped Milzigard become, you know, a good guy, or like kind of a good guy by like standards of One Piece. Well, good guy by the standards of the you know, celestial dragons, which isn't really saying much, but, you know, you get the idea. You got to take what you can get in regards to the celestial dragons in regards to allies. And Milzigar definitely qualifies as an ally. And it's just, I have this image in my head of like when, like at night in regards to like Neptune, when, like his sons are in bed asleep, Shirahoshi, for the whole time that she was locked up in the hard shell tower and everything for that whole time frame after Otohime died, that there are probably some nights where like Neptune would just like maybe not be able to sleep for that first couple of months, weeks, months, maybe even the first year, where he just had such a hard time sleeping because he just missed Otohime so much. He missed being able to talk to her and discuss things with her. And they have that. They have like the memorial for her, of course, in the coral forest or so, that coral area or so that Shirahoshi wanted Luffy to take her to. The dog found the window. I'm not opening it yet, and like they have that memorial there for her, and I'm sure that like Neptune and the boys go there, every so often, on the anniversary of her death and like on her birthday, and even like Neptune in regards to like their wedding anniversary, he might go there and puts flowers there and everything. And we just get this whole, he probably still misses her a lot. And my grandpa is kind of going through something similar to this at the moment. My grandparents on my mom's side, my grandfather died a long time before my grandma did, and like she never got remarried. She never, I don't know if she ever even dated anyone ever again. Admittedly, she had like 3 other kids, 2 other young boys she had to raise. But my mom was fifth of 7 kids, so she still had 2 younger brothers. And so she never fell, my grandma on my mom's side never fell back in love with anyone. She never married again or anything along those lines. And my grandfather on my dad's side is, my grandmother died unfortunately several years ago. And it's not as like, she wasn't assassinated or anything like that, but I always look at that from like, the point of view from the person who lost their, lost their love. And, I'm going to go over this a little bit also with like Kyros and Scarlet, of course, because Kyros went through something very similar to that. And, Scarlet was assassinated by, Diamante. And, Neptune, they thought that they had caught the pirate that did it, but of course he didn't actually pull the trigger. It was Horty, and he just blamed the pirate. And then, Neptune found out, 10 years later that no, that it was Horty that did this. It was Horty Jones that was the one that pulled the trigger to kill your wife and everything and planned this whole thing. And I'm sure that Neptune still, for that first year, he probably, had a hard time falling asleep most nights and just like talked into the night and talked to Otohime, stuff she missed with their children, I hate, I hate having to lock Shirahoshi up in that tower, but it's either that or she'll get hurt by Vanderdecken. It's that's for her own safety, and I hate doing it, but I have to. And the boys are all growing so strong and everything, and Shirahoshi gets more beautiful every day, type of a thing. And I've had Whitebeard's guarding our kingdom for now and everything, and that's making things better. But we still have more people, more fishermen that went off and became slaves, or well, it didn't become slaves; that were turned into slaves, I should say. That's the better form of it. And so we get all of this stuff where it's just like Neptune probably still misses her so much, and we see him grieving at her funeral. And even so many years later, he talks to Robin, and he's like, it's like, yeah, I know it was kind of written on that poneglyph, that's out in the sea forest, because, it's, we kind of know what it says, because, we used to have someone, generations ago that could read the poneglyphs, but nobody can read it now in the kingdom. And, we know that it's an apology letter from Joy Boy to the Mermaid Princess. but you know, he probably like talks to, you know, his sons and Shirahoshi about their mother, and other things along those lines. And I just, you know, now at whatever point in time when we see them again, I wouldn't mind it if we see like this, I was gonna say visage of like Otohime showing up at some point, um, or like I wouldn't mind if we get like a flashback where it's like we have like Milzigard talking to Neptune, or like, you know, like at some point like Milzigard and Neptune had a conversation either at the reverie, and he says, you know, during the time frame when I was traveling back up here, and I had your wife with me and everything, when you know, Otohime came up with me, you know, however many years ago, and you know, I talked to her, you know, I asked her about her family and about, you know, you guys and everything and her kingdom and her people. And, you know, she, you know, was so, you know, when she talked about you, she was just glowing and so happy. And she was so proud of her sons and her daughter and, you know, like all this stuff. And you know, maybe Milzigard had like a portrait made of Otohime or something. I feel like for him it's like a reminder of like, this is the woman who helped turn you into, like, make you realize that you are human, and that, you know, humans can be compassionate, and that being compassionate for others is not a weakness. And like, maybe not necessarily like a portrait of her, but maybe he had like, you know, because they have photo technology in One Piece, obviously, because we get like the paper with like the pictures in it, and they have like the bounty posters and everything. So we have photo technology, and that's been around for a while. And like maybe what it ended up happening is like, maybe Otohime had like some pictures taken of her or something like that, or like him and Otohime had some pictures taken at some point, or maybe like her in Marie's while seeing stuff, and like, I don't know, just like the fan theory type thing. Like maybe he gave some of those pictures to, you know, Neptune or something, or maybe Neptune, like maybe he has pictures of Otohime, of course, and he just, like, you know, sits and shows them to the kids of, like, you know, Otohime before she became queen, like shows them that type of stuff, and just like so they know more about their mother's past. And you know, he just talks to them about her every now and then. And you know, maybe Neptune would fall in love with someone someday, but Oda doesn't seem to be the type that sets that up. Big Mom being the exception of that, of course, because I don't think Big Mom actually falls in love with any of her husbands, but you know, we don't know. But you know, Oda hasn't really shown too much of like, oh, this person, like their spouse died or something, and then like, oh, they get married again sometime later on. Beyond it being like an arranged marriage or something like that, we really don't see anything like that. So it might just be that Oda is trying to convey that with, you know, Neptune, that it's, you know, it's like Otohime was his true love. And yeah, maybe they had a bit of a rocky relationship at the start in regards to, you know, she was this protester and then he's the king, of course. But they met in the middle. And now hopefully Shirahoshi and her brothers can help fulfill her mother's dream. And Neptune will be there right along with them, just as supportive of them as he ever was of Otohime. So we'll see where that goes. We might get some more references to Otohime at some point. I wouldn't mind that. But we'll see what else happens in regards to that. So that's what we have for Otohime and Neptune. So I went a little bit off the rails in a few areas, but you know, my brain is just like, well, what about if this happened? What about if that happened? But you know, that's it. So now I'm just going to go and record Scarlet and Kuros's video. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. There are more beautiful places than you can imagine in the world. There is no place that we should not go. You are just making convenient excuses to convince yourself and giving everything up. Have courage and go for what you truly want.